Hello and welcome to Sticky Marketing TV, the show that sees itself as the Ryanair of sales and marketing. Damn good value, but we'll charge you extra if you bring any baggage. And we're thinking of getting our live audience to pay to use the toilets. Joining me this month to switch the doors to automatic is Sticky Marketing founder and best-selling author Grant Leboff, who will be pointing out your nearest exit in due course. And joining us from the Departure Lounge is Robert Craven. Robert runs his own management consultancy, the Directors Centre, and is a highly sought-after speaker on entrepreneurship. He has just published his third book, Bright Marketing for Small Business, Make Your Business Stand Out from the Crowd. And he's here with us to tell us more about it. Before I get him to tell us more about it, I should just show you this fascinating cover here, which features the bottom of a zebra. Can you see that, Matt? Clearly my first question has to be, why have we got the bottom of a zebra on the cover of your book?
Well, Robert? It's business is standing out from the crowd, and the argument is quite simply, if you've got a herd of zebras, they all look the same, they all mingle, they all merge. You can't tell one from the other. And clearly if one zebra steps out, stands out from the crowd, then it gets recognised, then it gets seen, it can be seen from miles. Okay. Unfortunately, in wildlife, if you get seen by standing out in that sense, you probably get eaten by a lion.
You get savaged.
But in business terms, if you're running along with the mass, then no one can see, they can't distinguish you from the rest. Why on earth should they bother to buy from you? So it's really about standing out, being different.
Okay, well, on a more serious note, this is actually a very hands-on book. I've looked through it. It's very practical. There's lots of practical advice for small businesses. So what was your sort of inspiration behind the book? Why did you write it?
I wrote it partly because I just got fed up of people saying, what book should I buy, what book should I do, and that was the main reason for it. I really think there's a shortage of books that are available, that are practical, that have been written by people who've been there and done it, that have some theory, but the theory is so almost heavily disguised that you're not aware of it, but stuff what works.
Yeah, because I think one of the points you make in the book, and perhaps I'll bring Grant in on this as well, because I know it's a view that he holds as well, is that traditional marketing doesn't work. And so that we're kind of in this new world where we've got to rethink our marketing. I mean, is that right? Have I got that?
Absolutely. I think traditional marketing is naive. It's outdated. It just doesn't work. And the idea of having the marketing man spending money and buying people's wish to buy the product is entirely out of date. Advertising doesn't work. 79% of people fundamentally think that advertisers lie, whereas 81% of people believe referrals, recommendations of friends. So it's almost like the job of the marketing manager is almost redundant, because it's actually about the product, and it's about the people, and it's about the community, and it's about how you communicate with those people.
Yeah. At the risk of allowing you to push an open door here, Grant, I'm guessing you will agree with that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think the point Rob makes about the marketing manager's job is kind of redundant. I think a lot of what we have to do today is you build the marketing into the product, so it's the way the product works. What are people going to talk about? How do they participate? How do they get involved? You've actually got to think about your marketing strategy. In the old days, what people would do is they produce the cup, then give it to marketing and say, go market the cup, and marketing might come up with some design and go and hire some creative agencies to come in and do things. Whereas today, you've actually got to think about your marketing much more strategically before that, and think about, well, how are people going to get involved in this? Why are people going to talk about it, which then goes back to the product. Why is it outstanding? Why is it interesting? Why is it different? In many ways, marketing has become much more strategic than it ever was. You have to think about it way before one used to.
Right. So in that case, if you've produced your cup and you haven't built the marketing into the product, as it were, what do you do then? If you're not going to go to the marketing department anymore or the agency, I mean, how do you?
Well, I just think it's almost more fundamental than that, because the big question is, why should people bother to buy your product when they can buy from the competition? And if you can't answer that question, you're in shtuck. So it really is. Why should people bother to buy from you? What makes you different from the rest? And it's actually going back to that, because all the stats show that if you're the same as everyone else, you become a commodity. You can only charge a commodity price, and you're going with the flow. You're in the herd. You look like all the others. And really, if you're accountancy practice, if you're double glazing, if you're shoe shop, if it looks the same as the competition, I can't think of a single reason why I should bother to buy from you. So it's a clarion call to actually create some difference and an overt, to actually demonstrate an overt benefit, to actually show people what they get if they come to you, to show them a real reason to believe that you're the one who can actually deliver, and to demonstrate, as it's called, that dramatic difference. And I mean dramatic. You need to be proud, not ever so humble, and you need to be telling people what it is that you do that they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. And you mentioned benefits there, and of course the old argument about advertising features as opposed to benefits and all that sort of thing, and how benefits are much more important. And one of the things you say in the book is that the benefit has to be greater than the cost, which kind of sounds obvious when you say it, but perhaps we don't always think that way, do we?
Well, I think a couple of things have happened. I think the economic climate is one thing where there is a greater requirement for, on a business-to-business thing, there's an expectation of a return on investment. If you buy £1,000 of consultancy, you are within rights to expect £5,000 of bottom line profit. There are those sort of equations. And you can use that in your marketing to say, we guarantee a return on investment. And I think the same thing applies whether you're staying at a hotel or wherever it is that you're staying for that £100 that I'm spending. Am I getting value for money? Could I get it better elsewhere? And that's about, again, why you have to try and work away from that commodity thing, buying on price, to people buying on the value that you're giving them.
Yeah. And how does that work in practice, Grant, with the sort of clients you're dealing with? I mean, the working out the benefits as opposed to the features, and then selling those benefits. Is that a challenge for business to do that?
I think it's a challenge because I think that most businesses don't really understand the value proposition that they have. So they think they understand the value proposition. I had an interesting, I was giving a speech to students, 16, 17 years old, and we were talking about iTunes, and they thought it was quite funny that I use iTunes because that means I have to pay for music, and they were saying, but you can get music for free. The bit they missed was I wasn't paying for the music, I was paying for convenience. Because I can get music for free, but it's a pain, and you risk a virus, and there's lots of other... It doesn't catalogue properly with my iPhone and my iPad. So the reason I go onto iTunes is actually not for the music, it's for the convenience. So the point is, does a company understand their value proposition? And often, I think especially with small businesses, they really don't. They don't really understand what people are actually buying, and it isn't often what they think it is. And then once you understand your value proposition, it's also, do you understand the value that you can offer around that? Because one of the things I think, I don't know whether you'll agree on this, but one of the things I think is the product or service might not be different. Now, you could make it different, you can try and make it different, but sometimes you can also create quite a lot of value around what you do. So suddenly, the value proposition, when you widen it out, is actually very different. The actual bottom line product, the accountancy advice that someone gets might be exactly the same. But the fact that you run a networking group on the side where you're giving access to opening up your contact book and doing other value-added services around the core product means that then people want to come to you because you're the place to go and everything else. So it's how do you often create value around what you do? But you can't do that if you don't understand what the core value is. And I think that a lot of businesses... I don't know if you find this, but a lot of businesses don't. They don't really understand.
Yeah, and I think what actually happens is they go into this technician piece where they think, I'm an accountant, so what do? I do IR 35, IR 72, the white paper, and they sit behind their desk doing what they think accountants do. And what they need to do is they need to get off their backsides, and they need to imagine walking into that accounting office in the customer's shoes, and what is it that the client actually wants to buy from an accountant? I don't want to buy IR 35 and Sage version 11.7 blah blah. I'm not interested in that. I'm assuming you can do that. What I want to buy is I want to buy, in the accounting instance, I want to buy less tax and more profit and maybe some sense of security and knowing that I'm okay. And until people running businesses get that people don't buy what you do. People buy from you not what you do, but what you do does for them. People don't buy from you for what you do. People buy for the afters. That's what the benefit is. I really don't care what machinery my accountant uses, but he might be preoccupied with his latest computers and his latest software and that. And it's really getting underneath that thing about what is the character who's walking into the shop, in through the shop doorway. What is it that he wants, And how can I present that proposition? Because the accountant thing's great, because I adore my accountant, okay? And all accountants are meant to be the same. But I think my accountant's stunning. He does do things differently, but most of it's about not what he does, but it's kind of how he does it. So it's a fixed price agreement, it's a money-back guarantee if work's not done on time, it's absolute 100% commitment about growing the profit of my business, and I feel like he's someone who's really there with me, and I see some, but not that many accountants who are doing that. Most of the rest are saying, I'm an accountant, I'll stay behind the desk. And that's about understanding it through the customer's eyes.
Yeah, I was going to make that point. I mean, that's something you say specifically in the book. It is through the customer's eyes.
Well, how else can you see it? I mean, if you go to a hotel for a weekend, if you watch a video, whatever it is, surely it's always about the customer. In fact, today there's a blog that's come out just today, where by an accounting firm, we should stop talking about them, by an accounting firm saying the seven things that clients need to understand about an accountant. And it's like, they need to understand that no, they don't need to understand anything, yeah? They are paying your wages, yeah? And you, the accountant, needs to understand, what does it feel like to be a customer? Just like the banks, just like architects, just like consultants. Yeah.
So the blog should have been the 7 things we need to understand about our customers.
And funny you should say that, because I did mention there was a blog with exactly that title.
Who wrote that blog?
I can't think who it is.
All right, well, we'll come back to that. Talking of sevens, there's something in your book called the 7x3 rule, and this is an interesting point about. I hope you remember this. 7x3 rule, which is about, if I understand it correctly, how to get heard amongst the noise. Yeah. Herd as in H-E-A-R-D, not herd of zebras. And because that is a problem, isn't it? For particularly for small businesses, if you're in a crowded marketplace, how do people hear you? So tell me a bit about the 7x3 rule.
Well, I mean, the rule's pretty simple, which is it's just saying that by 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you will have come across something like 4,000 or 5,000 marketing messages, whether it's Sony or Rolex, I'm joking, or Parker, whatever it is. We get bombarded with messages, and in that world, clearly the big players are doing it all the time. Whether it's Heinz Beans, whatever it is, those messages are out there. And what hope have we got for those messages to actually be noticed? And you have to hear those messages. You have to hear the messages not once, not twice, 3 times, 4. 7 times, I reckon, 7 times, and then it vaguely lodges. But it kind of gets a bit worse than that, because even though there are those 7 times when the message needs to be heard, I would argue that there's numerous times when the message just doesn't even make it. So yes, you've got to communicate 7 times into your brain, you hear the brand name. But then you're going to have to, for each of those messages to get through, you're going to have to communicate 3 times, because the cat will eat the message, or the radio batteries will run out, or the kids will shout as the advert comes out, or whatever it is. So on average, people need to hear the message, I reckon, about 21 times. And if you talk to people in networking groups, they go once a week, they say on average it takes 4 or 5 months of attending the networking group before people actually remember who you are and what you do, which you're back to that 21 times. And I think very often, a lot of the clients that we have, they tried mail shots, okay, and they tried it for 2 or 3 weeks, but it didn't work. In other words, they gave up too soon. Or they tried an advertising campaign, and they tried it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they gave up. Or they tried going to networking, and they went for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they gave up. And I think in this crowded world, for our message to actually stick, it just needs to be dripping and dripping and dripping and dripping.
Do you agree with that point?
I think people need to hear the message and communicate with you a lot of times. So then it goes back to what Robert was saying before as well, which is then it's not about you, it's about the customer. And the thing is, can you produce value? Can you communicate in a way that is valuable to the customer so you get some share of attention? And then the idea is we talk about sticky marketing and return on engagement. If you can engage a customer over a period of time, because it's right, it doesn't happen over 2 days. If you can engage a client over a period of time, or a prospect if you like, because you've got something of value, and again, understanding your value proposition. So whether it's creating good content like sticky marketing TV, or whether it's creating good articles, or whether it's engaging in any other ways that you can, so you get some sort of share of attention. And what that means that over time, when someone is ready to buy, doesn't guarantee the business, by the way, but it does guarantee you perhaps a seat at the table, or at least you're in mind. And that's all you can really expect from marketing. Marketing doesn't never guarantee the business, but if your marketing gets to a situation where when someone's ready to buy, they at least consider you as one of the options, your marketing's working.
And I think there's a corollary, a reverse of that, which is that if Flossie runs a flower shop, and she puts an advert in the local paper 3 times, I'm not saying that's the correct strategy, but so she goes, I spent £50 a week 3 times, nothing's happened, I'm going to give up. And I think it's far more about, why doesn't it work for lots of people? Because they half try, they don't take massive action and go for it. They kind of half try stuff, not thinking it's going to work, and it fails. And I think there's also another thing, which is about, if it's a big purchase, if it's a big purchasing decision, then people take maybe 7 or 8 hours to make up their mind to buy a big high-value ticket price item. And then obviously if you've got 21 pieces, if you've got 21 articles on your website, they're going to spend quite a lot of time reading your articles. So of that 8 hours, they're spending a lot of time with you, whereas if you've just got that one little flimsy flyer, they're going to start thinking about other people and going on. So there's something. I don't think marketing's just about. One thing I don't think it's about is about buying Infusionsoft and sending people emails of 5 days a week and beating them into submission. Because actually, I think what you end up doing is you end up getting needy clients, and you don't actually get the clients who necessarily you want. So there's a subtlety involved.
In the book, you also, at one point, you look at the effectiveness of different techniques, because obviously this is, as I say, it's a hands-on book, and there's practical advice in there. And I think the number one selling technique that you identify is face-to-face.
Yeah.
Is as opposed to not face-to-face and other techniques. Well, perhaps it should be obvious, but explain to me why that is so effective.
I mean, I would never call it research. But the survey was originally done just for a client, and we spoke with it was coming up to 1,000 businesses under 200 employees, and the question was a simple question, which is, what is for you? What's the number one way of selling? And we originally did this probably in 2003, 2004, and we redid it in 2009, and we redid it last year because we thought in this modern internet age, the stats don't add up. And what it said was basically, number one, head and shoulders above anything else when people are selling is face-to-face. So if I can just get in front of you, I can sell. And number two was referrals, recommendations, which is if you can just tell me who I should be buying from, then I'll buy from them. Number three was networking. And it kind of goes 33%, 20%, and zoof, down to networking. 4% of these businesses thought it was the number one way of selling for them. And then everything else that we kind of associate with marketing, advertising, conferences, email campaigns, PR, exhibitions, all the stuff that people normally think of as marketing, were just pants. I mean, they hardly scored anything. And so just remember, it was a piece of work to say, what works best for you people? And they're saying for them the best way of selling is face-to-face, which feels like a no-brainer. I think the other thing it tells you is what you have on this graph, if you imagine the graph, on one side is you have the face-to-face stuff, which is referrals, recommendations, face-to-face, networking. These are all essentially free things. Networking costs you the price of a tank of petrol. But essentially they're free but time-consuming. And then the other stuff, and my apologies to anyone who's watching who runs an advertising agency or a marketing agency or runs conferences and things, the other stuff is pretty expensive in terms of return on investment. And more importantly, we are bombarded. I listen to my PA every day saying, no, we don't want PR, no, we don't want telemarketing, no, we don't want that. And it's like we've been perverted to believe that marketing is about spending money on adverts, on this stuff, when in fact what normally works, especially for a small business, because you're not doing millions of sales, is actually just getting out there and talking to people. So we use that research as a kind of a kind of wild card, just to remind people, if you want to sell, pick up the phone.
Yeah. And as sort of leading on from that, you also talk about enthusiasm, communicating your enthusiasm. And we've all experienced, haven't we, I think, the business that is not enthusiastic.
Oh.
You know, and you kind of think, well, why would I buy from you?
Absolutely.
Again, it seems obvious, but it's not, doesn't it?
But I actually think you have to commit to that enthusiasm when you're selling. And what we tend to do is we're so frightened of people saying no, that we'll write the proposal and we'll send it to them, or we'll write the proposal and we might even take it in, but we won't actually ask for the business. So why don't you have your enthusiasm and your passion on your sleeve, and you go and see people and say, look, here's a proposal, really excited about doing the work with you, and I just want to make it clear to you that I really feel there's something going on that if we work together would actually happen. I exaggerate a bit, but I think most people are so frightened of people saying no, they just hand over the proposal. So it's like most people do marketing by osmosis. They kind of expect. I'll put my business card there, and I expect you will pick it up and go, "That's just what I want. I'm going to buy it right now." And it just doesn't happen like that. And why would I buy from you if you weren't enthusiastic about what you do?
Grant, are you enthusiastic when you're selling yourself?
Yeah, and I think it's also having. I think sometimes. Yeah. No, I think.
Undecisive. Sometimes. Sorry.
That's fine. I think it's about enthusiasm, but I think for a lot of people it's because they're not really sure what they're selling. It goes back to the value. So the problem is they're not really confident about what their value proposition is. They know that there isn't much differentiation. Why should I buy from you? Actually, I don't really know, because the guy down the road is the same. Yeah. So then that leads to that lack of confidence and that lack of enthusiasm, because I think the more confident, enthusiastic, when you really do believe you've got something to offer the other person. I think too many people genuinely don't think they have got anything particularly special to offer, so then it comes out in everything else. So,
and this is we're back to, if you're the same as the competition, you're in the commodity market and you're selling tins of beans, and they're just going to say, how much are you selling them for? I can get them for 1p cheaper down the road, and you're down that thing. There's a lovely quote I heard the other day, which is, just in terms of if you're going to compete on price, just make sure that the other guy needs more to live on than you do, and it's you kind of feel like that people endlessly think they have to compete on price. And there's a table in there, okay, which shows you that if you put your prices up by 10% on a 30% gross margin, so you're buying for 7 quid, selling for 10 quid. If you put your prices up by 10%, you can afford to lose 25% of your customers, okay? You'll still have the same amount of money in your back pocket. And the amazing thing is, who are the customers you lose? The customers you lose are, I apologise for my language, but they are the scum and the pond life difficult customers who are buying on price. It's never good enough. They always want more. They phone you on a Sunday. They're never good. Whereas if you put your prices up by 10%, Then sorry, I'll rephrase that. If you put your prices up by 10%, you can afford to lose 25% of your customers. If you put your prices down by 10%, because you think you have to be cheaper, you need to sell 50% more stuff. You have to sell half as much stuff again. So you were trading Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You now need to trade another 2.5 days in the week, Saturday, Sunday, and next Monday morning, just to be in the same place, And what you're doing is you're attracting price-sensitive people who are never going to be happy, whereas you should be, as small businesses, you cannot compete on price. What you can do is you can compete on being friendlier, being local, being higher tech, being lower tech. In the case of my local pub, being ruder. But you can't compete on price, And good. The more, as Grant says, the more you hone your offering, the more you're clear about what you do and what you don't do and who you do it for and who you don't do it for, the more it becomes a no-brainer for them. You know how it is when there's something you want to buy and they've got it in the shop and it's in the right colour and the guy explains everything to you, and it's, you know, it's a pleasure and it's experience, as opposed to the other thing where, you know, so what's this television here? Oh, it's the 7433. And what's the difference between that and the 7432? Oh, this one's £699 and this one's 672. Yeah, I get that, but you know.
I think that's the other thing that you've just kind of said, but I think a lot of businesses miss. It's not just about how you differentiate your own business, but who you do it for. Because actually understanding where your market position is in the market itself, because it can be sometimes, well, actually we do the same thing, but we specifically do it for those people, and because we do it for those people, and we have the experience of doing it for that people, there's a value proposition in that as well. So it's often understanding who your customer base is, and one of the things you find with small businesses is they're terrified to say no. So sometimes it's more important who you say no to. Actually we don't work with customers like this.
This is the expert thing. So experts do a specific set of things, and they do that specially. They get paid premium prices. So I'll give you an example. I've got two friends, both of whom are business coaches. One of them, brilliant guy, is what I would call a standard business coach. So he charges £300 to £400 a day. Now, in a day, he will see an accountant, architect, a window cleaner, a cameraman, all kinds of businesses. So he's brilliant because he's able to help and assist all these different types of business. And he charges £300 or £400 a day. I know another coach who just coaches dentists. Nothing else, just dentists. Now, I know it doesn't sound very exciting, but the point is he knows more about dentists than anyone else. He knows more about dentists than dentists do. And he is the expert on what dentist problems are and how to sort them out. And the dentists have literally been training him to become their guru. And because he's a guru, he charges around about £2,500 a day, because people want to have the inside track that he's got. But it's easy for him because every day he gets the same sort of people with the same sort of problem, and he has the same sort of solution for them. And it kind of feels like the more you say no, we don't do that, we just do this, the easier it is to become an expert. And the more an expert you are, within dentists, this guy's known by everyone. Everyone knows who he is. So he builds up his expert model, by writing. What do experts do? They write books, they have websites, they do blogs, they have a really clear offering. I work with these people who have this problem, what I do is this. And every article says the same thing. When they stand up on stage, they say the same thing, and they become, in this instance, Mr. Dentist. And it kind of feels, obvious that if you niche, you're more likely to be, the big fish in that small pool.
Well, I think that's excellent advice. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Thanks also to my guest, Grant LeBoff, Robert Craven. If you've enjoyed our Sideways Look at Marketing, why not join us again next month on Sticky Marketing TV?